Hey UTV Boondockers, so in today's episode, we're going to install these Bent and Twisted Fabrication kickers. These tree kickers are fantastic. They come in a bunch of different styles. So these are the ones that I chose with little steps in them and a custom logo. Check this out. It's pretty sweet. So we're going to run through the install process today. So stay tuned and we'll check it out. One thing I want to point out is the shipping and packing was amazing. They had this like carpet padding in here. They're all double wrapped with the shrink wrap and wrapped in a box. So rest assured, when you order your tree kickers, they're going to come intact. There'll be no shipping damages unless they really throw this thing around. And even then, you know, these things are over 70 pounds, very heavy, and they're bolted together. So I still have to go through the instructions. I'm not sure if we're going to end up using these or if these are just extra, but they're 19 millimeter to get these off. And for this particular style, that's how they're bolted. I'm going to assume the rest of them are probably bolted the same way. So not only are they individually wrapped, but once this is done, they're wrapped again. So let's get her all undone and go through the install instructions. So the instructions for this, they're very good. We're still going to go through it in the video, of course, but they give you all the tools that you need right here, all the required tools. And he'll even write down like what you have in the instructions, which is a nice touch. So of the two types of install, there's L-bolts. And L-bolts are the style that you do not need to drill through the frame. Probably going to show you this, but my choice is going to be the second one, which is the bolt set. So the difference is the bolt set will go straight through the frame and it requires you to drill. So if you're not comfortable drilling through the frame, then you can skip that step and we'll go through the first one. But overall, these are very straightforward and I'm going to walk you through this. Anybody can do this install. If you choose the second option, you're going to have to drop this belly pan, which that's something I'm going to cover as well. This looks big, looks like a big deal. It's not that bad, but it is sort of a pain, especially on reassembly. But it's a good time for you to take this thing off and clean everything in there. You know, lube up your axles, lube up your drive shafts and so on and so forth. So clean stuff out of there, because you'd be surprised how many rocks you'll find in there. And also, if you're using stock floor plugs, I can almost guarantee you're going to find one down in there too. So we'll cover that. So stay tuned. All right, so to mount these up, we're near the point where it's time to mount them. There's two options. One, I'm going to do this option. This is taking these large bolts that are provided in the kit. You're going to use this hole. This is where those T40 torque bit were to hold the plastic on. You're going to use this hole, and you're going to have to drill in the other side to go all the way through the frame. I choose this one. I think it's going to be a stronger option for me, but you don't have to do this, right? If you do go with this option, you're going to have to drop the belly pan. Okay, so we'll cover that. All right, so the second option, if you don't want to drill through the frame, drop the belly pan and all that, you don't have to. You can use these L-bolts that they gave you. There's a T30 bolt, which is this guy right here, just a T30 torque bit. You'll use that. Sometimes he has them in here for the kits. So if it's screwed in here, just loosen it up first. Now this part's really easy. So what you're going to want to do is face this out. It's going to fit in like this, and you're going to line it up inside of there, and then this bolt runs right through there. All right, now let's quickly cover the tools you're going to need if you go with the L-bolt install option. First, you're going to need all four of the L-bolts with the screws. You're going to need these 4 washers that comes with the kit and 4 nylock bolts to mount it. So that's all your mounting accessories. Now, while you're putting these in, what I used was the nut, 19 millimeter nut, and a washer that was used to hold the 2 tree kickers together. This is great for testing. We'll get into that in a minute. Now, as far as tools go, all you really need, like a 3/8 socket wrench, which is 19 millimeter. You're also going to need a T40 torque bit and a T30 torque bit. Also, a screwdriver in case you need to pry things off. This is optional. A magnet, any kind of magnet. This one's one of those extended ones to find those lost 10 millimeters that we always run into. One of these are handy. A little WD-40, penetrating oil, any kind of oil is good to have. A light, you can use your phone, you can use Big Larry, one of these Nebos, whatever. And then it's really handy to have like an impact. You know, this is just a little 1/4 inch guy. And having one of these tips is handy too, where you can put a 3/8 socket on it. So super handy. This is all you're really going to need. A pre-install note that I wanted to mention is when you're taking off all these bolts for the L-bolt install style. There's 4 of them, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Use your T40 to remove these. When you do this, take note to remember to get this washer. You're going to need this for when you mount the actual L-bolts themselves. So when these are put in there, you're going to want to use this on the silver bolt like so. So this threads into this, that's actually threaded, and then this goes behind it. So you have 2 things to thread into, which makes it kind of fun. Put her in there like so, and then thread it through with the washer like this. This is what you're going to need to do when we cover it in the subsequent steps, in case I don't call out that you need this washer. Now, what I had to do, this is a 2017. This thing was, you know, had some surface rust on it. You're going to want to put some WD-40 in there, maybe run the bolt in and out a couple times. I would do that by hand if it is a little rusty. Just use a manual tool to do it. But once you get it in there, you're going to want to thread it in, and it's going to want to thread right into this L-bolt. That's what I'm trying to do. It's a little tricky, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to get it at some point. Finally got it. So now, once you have it started, don't tighten it. Don't worry about my bleeding. I bleed sometimes. The next step, don't tighten this, and I would throw a washer on it. Will that fit in there? It does. I would take the nut that came with the 2 tree kickers to hold them together. This is not the nylock nut. The nylock has that little plastic ring in there. I don't like to use those until I'm ready, like the final bit, because once you ruin that little plastic thing, it doesn't bite quite as good. So use one of these to hold it in place, and you're going to want to tighten this guy right on down. This is a 19 millimeter. So what I'm going to do, tighten right down. Now this is nice and flat. Now the next step is taking the T30, and now you can tighten this guy down. Be gentle with it, because this is going to hold it in place for good. All right, snug it up really good. This is it. Now we repeat the same step for this bolt, and the front one, and then we can go ahead and we can mount the tree kickers. So I'm going to do that now and show you how this is done. All right, so the next step we're going to do, we're going to move on to this next bit. So we're going to take this off. This was only there to hold it in place. So get this out of there. And sometimes this will be a pain to get this guy out of there for you. It's nice to have a little magnet handy. That'll save you a couple seconds. And then keep this one, set it aside. Then what I would do is take the screw out of this L bracket, throw a little WD-40 or whatever you want in there, and then put a little bit in here. And again, like I mentioned, run this in this hole a couple times by hand, get it started, and then use a hand tool to drive it all the way in, all the way to the bottom fully seated to clean those threads up, because you don't want to cross thread this. So just take your time, and this will work out really well for you. And then back it out. I do this a few times. Now that that looks good, I'm comfortable that it's in the threads enough. Now I'm going to take this tool, run it out slowly and in all the way, back it out, in, out. All right, then I'm going to do the same with this guy. Start it by hand, don't cross thread, gently run her through. little trick that'll help you out a little bit, because your next step now is fishing this through. Have a light handy too, because you've got to find those threads in there. They're a little tricky to find them. That's what I ran into with this. It just takes a few minutes, but the length is right. It should sit right there. So go on in there. And honestly, this is probably going to take you the most time with the install. All right, now that you got it on there, don't tighten it all the way. Leave this so it's a little floppy. And now, take your washer, your nut. We're going to do the same thing again. We're going to take that 19 millimeter. Always start a little bit first. Couple blips, couple of Boondockas. And then, go to your T30 and gently tighten that guy up. Best way to check it is to loosen this top one. Make sure you don't have a lot of play. And then, to speed up the day, instead of having to fish that guy out, get a magnet. Pull that off. This should maybe move a little bit, but not much. Now, I'm going to repeat this step. I'm going to lube up each one, run them through each side just to make sure I don't cross thread. That's going to be your biggest enemy. Get yourself some good light, and then you'll be able to see these. Once all 4 of these are done, I'm going to finish up those front 2, and then we're going to mount these tree kickers and see what they look like. All right, so once you're done, this is kind of what it looks like. Now, when you take these bolts out of here, this is what it's going to look like. Make sure that you take, I purposely left one off, take this washer and use it for this. You'll see the difference if you zoom in on this guy. See how that's sunk in there really good? And then take a look at this one down here that used the washer. So make sure you reuse the washers, okay? So that's definitely your next step. Now, once you're done, minus fixing that, of course, you'll have one there, one there, one there, and then one there. Next step, we're going to slide this guy on. It's good to have a friend help you because these things are pretty heavy. And we're going to bolt them up and take a look at them. So your next step is to slide this on, and then you can start putting your washers on. There's one there and there, right here and there. I've just got one nut on it for right now. So what I've done, because the next step for me is I'm going to install it using the bolts all the way through. There's the 2 bolts type. This one right here is a nylock, and this one does not have it. You can see the difference. You want to use this one. So the one I used, again, this is just temporary, but you're going to want to use these nylock bolts, put them down on there and snug them up good. All 4. And then once that's done, you are done and ready to roll. And I must say, that's a pretty cool logo. Yeah, beautiful. All right, so stay tuned for the next step. We're going to show you how to do this when you drill all the way through the frame, and that'll be the permanent way I'm going to be doing this. Hey, I hope this video is helping you out to install these awesome tree kickers. If it's helpful, drop a like down below and consider subscribing. We have lots of videos like this that I think you'd like. All right, now if you're doing the bolt set option, which again is that's what I'm going to do, where you have to drill through, you're going to need some additional tools. So what I'm doing is you can use a 3/8 drive just like the other with a 19 millimeter or 3/4 inch socket. I'm also going to grab a 1/2 inch drive and socket just because you have to tighten it from behind the bolt and nut in there. So you'll definitely need those. You're going to need the T40 torque bit. This is to take off a couple bolts under the belly pan. You're also going to need a 10 millimeter. You can use a shallow socket. You don't need a long one. This is also for the belly pan. In addition, a light is always handy. Screwdriver just in case. Magnet just in case. Shouldn't need it, but it's nice to have it handy. A mallet in case you have to massage the belly pan back in. Sometimes they're kind of a pain. Definitely going to want safety goggles. You got to have safety glasses because when you're under there taking that belly pan off, things are going to fall in your face and eyes. So have a pair of these handy. I would also have some WD-40. Whenever I put things like that back on underneath, things tend to fall back into the holes where you have to mount the bolts to hold the belly pan off. It's good to clean all those off, put a little lube in there, makes it easier to go back together. You're going to need a drill. And with the drill, you're going to need a 1/2-inch drill bit. Make sure you have a good one. This isn't the best one, so it's going to take me a minute when I drill, but make sure it's rated for steel. And then also get yourself a 1/4-inch one. So this is going to help pilot the hole through to make it a little bit easier, the whole process. We will cover this. Now, as far as, one other tool you're going to need, you don't need this, but it's nice to have a little 3/8 drive on an impact. This way you can help put the bolt in if you need to a little bit quicker. Handy item, not necessary. Now, as far as the parts go, you're going to have the 4 bolts, and you're going to have the 8 washers, and of course you're going to have your nylock nuts, those ones with little plastic on them. You'll notice one of these is bigger. So the bigger one is going to go up here, and then all the others go in those holes. So 3 for the bottom, and the larger one that's a little bit longer and larger for this hole, that's going to go on the top. There is a note. This is a 2017 model. I believe the 2023s and newer, you'll know when you order it, you're going to get another bolt, an additional one that might be slightly smaller for just this hole. On the back side of the frame, there's gussets that help strengthen the frame. And sometimes, just because of the way Polaris welds these, it may interfere a bit when you drill through, so you won't be able to get the washer on the back side. So you have a smaller bolt to put in there. You may not need it. Plan on using the larger ones that come with, but just in case you need it, you'll have that shipped with your kit. I didn't need it because of the year that I have. So again, these are all the tools you're going to need. First, we're going to start with doing the belly pan, and then we're going to get into installing the rest of them. This step is going to go very, very well. So stay tuned. Okay, so step 1, make sure you're on somewhat level ground. Jack up the rear end. I'm using my GL1000. It's just a few boards. If you've seen some of my other videos for greasing up the bearings, I just use this so I don't have to worry about the A-arms dropping. But it doesn't matter. Just jack it up enough to get yourself underneath, and then use some jack stands just for safety. You don't want this thing falling on you. Now, the next step, we're just going to crawl underneath here, and we're going to take off the belly pan. Okay, so what we need to do with these guys is you're going to have 10 millimeter bolts to remove in this belly pan, and then you're going to have 6 T40, which the T40s are one right here, one right there, a couple up here, and a couple more in the same spot right here over there. So go ahead and do this. These 2 pieces will come apart, okay? So what I would suggest is look for the overlap, and then take the one off here first, and then the other. It will slide off of the front. They kind of hook onto the front frame. Once you take it off, you'll see that. Again, not a big deal, but wear the goggles, because there's all kinds of crap up in here that's going to fall right in your eyeballs. So do that, and I'm going to take all these off and then show you what happens. Stay tuned. All right, so now you can see I removed all the bolts. I did not take them off the very, very back skid plate. I'm going to see if I can get that off without taking it. That's the very back part. But you can see here, she's dipping in the middle pretty good. Now, an easy way to do this is you take off these bolts right here. And then it'll release a little bit of the tension. On the belly to get it out. So now you pull this away a little bit, and you can see how it comes out a lot easier. This is how I do it, and it seems to work out quite well. So I'm first going to get this going, and I'm going to take this time to clean all this crap out and get a shot vac. So that's going to take me a few minutes. Oh look, when my belt blew on that trip last year. Nice. Now we're ready to start the bolt through method. For this, you're going to need to get your drill, and you're going to have to put in your 1/2-inch drill bit. Again, this isn't the best one. Buy yourself a good drill bit that's rated for steel. But what I'm going to do is try to keep this so it's straight up and down, not on an angle. So do your best to get a straight hole in there. Push it up against it, and we're going to kind of start the hole a little bit. Put some good pressure on it. Then, at that point, what we're looking for is a start. So as you can see in there, hopefully you can see that. I just got it started, and now we're going to use the 1/4-inch drill to go all the way through. So I'm going to swap this out, put it in the 1/4-inch drill. And hopefully I'll be able to find that guy. There, drops right in. Done. Drill bit's hot, don't burn yourself. Switch back to the 1/2-inch drill. Again, because this drill bit isn't the best, I'm going to throw a little WD-40 in there to help it along. This will kick smoke and all kinds of stuff. Find my hole, and drill is through. Well, done. Whew! And then we grab one of these just to make sure it's going to go through. And it does. Win. Now I'm going to repeat that process for each one of these other 3 holes. And I'll get back with you and we'll be ready to mount them. All right, now we're ready to mount it. Now what I've done is I've set all these bolts out. There's 3 of them that are the same size. I set them off right here along with the nut, the nylock nut, and the washer. Down there I use the longer one. You'll see that in a second. For now, what I'm going to do is just sort of hold this up, push it through, go all the way through, and where's that little bugger at? There we go. And I'm just going to start it. So technically you can do this by yourself. All right, that should be enough to hold it there. Slide on down here, put this one in. Should be enough to hold it. And then as mentioned, there's 2 right here. The longer one will go up top, the shorter one will go down below. So we'll go ahead and get these guys in there. Now this one, because of the way Polaris does things, sometimes the gusset that they weld on the frame isn't right where it should be. So, yeah, that washer isn't fitting on there good, so we're gonna have to check that out in a minute. Yeah, that's gonna be interesting. So what I'm doing is I'm pulling the bolt out a little bit, just enough for the nut to bite on the back side of that. And I'm going to work on this top one here. That goes all the way through. And actually we're at a point where as soon as we tighten this up, it's pretty much done. And you're ready to rock and roll. So I'm going to start with this one and try to get this tightened up first. I'm going to grab the 19mm with this guy, and then my 19mm with this one, and just sort of hold them. So back here you can see that the threads are through there, just enough past the nylock, which is what you need. Now in the case of this back one we're having some troubles with, you can see that it's very, very close to that frame. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to end up grinding some of the washer off, just enough to clear this. So I have a grinder over there. Basically you need a grinder for this, there's no way around it. Now it's a pretty tight fit for the hole. You could tighten it down with a box end wrench on this without putting a washer on. I like a washer, so I'm just going to do the grind down and come back and put this part on. All right, let's see if that works. So as you can see here, grinding that washer down did the job. Now I already did the other side, no problems. So again, when they weld these up, sometimes they're not exactly the same on both sides. That happens. So in this case, you're going to need to get a box end 19 millimeter and just hold it here and tighten it from the other side. Now that we've got those finished up, all the bolts are nice and tight, she's ready to go. Our next step is putting on the belly pan. That is probably the least fun part of this project. So let's get started. So really quick, before I put the belly pan on, it's a really good time to inspect underneath your machine. You can clean off things, clean any mud or gunk out of it that you want. Just sort of give it a once over, which is always a good idea. And while you're down here, there are a couple grease zerts, at least on my 2017 model. So there's one, as you can see right up in there. That's for part one of the drive shaft. And the second one, if you go up here a little bit toward the front, there's another one right there. You can see it off to the left side. That's another one we can get. So I'm going to lube both of those, give them a few pumps of lube in there with the grease gun and kind of check things over. And that's about all I can do for down here. The rest of them you can get from the other ends of the machine. So anyway, just a real quick tip before we get too busy. All right, so one of the first steps you're going to need to do before putting the belly pan on is in this little plastic channel that it slides in. Just run your finger along and clean any dirt out. Do this on both sides, and then we'll start assembling the belly pan. All right, to show you how this kind of goes together, it's a little bit of a pain. It's meant to fit so that the back piece, this is your back part, this piece slides into here and under. There's a clip. So when you removed it, make sure that clip didn't fall off. Then this piece will slide above on this. Then this piece will slide behind this, so you can put the bolt hole through here. So these are always on the bottom. Anytime you see a clip, they're on the underside. Once you get this together, because I'm going to probably assemble it together and put the T40 bolts in here, all of these, there should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. Then I'm going to slide it underneath. I'm probably going to put one edge in first. Whichever edge, if you look underneath, that has the most play in it, I would save that one for last because it'll be easier to get it in. This right here, this edge lip, will fit in that plastic piece like so. So that's kind of the tricky part. Once you get one side in, you want to slide this forward. This will hook under the front piece, and these right here will go over the tube frame, which is right down here, this guy. This bar, that's where it hooks on. All right, so like I said, I did assemble these together. I didn't tighten these very tight, but I did just enough to hold them. And then I went on that side and I slid it in there. You kind of got to fish it in and it'll pop in. Do that side first, because when you lift this, there's a good frustrating chance that the other side's going to want to fall out. And it might happen. So I guess we just let it happen. So now I'm going to bring this up and try to get this edge in over here the same way I did over there. Now that I have my bolts and washers closer, as I have a bolt hole that shows up, I'm going to start hand tightening some of these in. But this side needs to slide upward. There we go. Up and over. Excellent. Like I mentioned, there's no real pretty way to do this. So as you can see, I'm just tightening these up in the front a little bit, enough to hold it. And up in the front, you want to make sure there's the little hook I showed you earlier that should be under. And then right by the frame here, just double check before you start to move back. These should be hooked onto the frame. And then just start moving your way down and putting in the bolts back where they go. So I'm going to finish doing that so you don't have to watch all this madness, and I'll be right back to show you how to get the back part on. The last step you need to do is get this part hooked on right there. Now I'm going to show you on the other side. I just used a screwdriver to pry that. Basically, it looks kind of ugly, but it works. Run your screwdriver up. And then pry it. Like so. Just to get that on there. Yep. Good. The last thing you want to do is just make sure that, you know, it's tucked in all the way down on both sides. Hey, thanks a lot for watching today's video. If it was helpful, please click that like button and consider subscribing. We do all kinds of videos and we love that you watch them. So thanks for your time and have a great day.